Hey, it's Jason Clemmons, Doctor of Chiropractic at the Rock Health and Wellness Center, and this is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. Coming to you tonight. It's Friday, January 19th, and you guys on the radio can't see this, but all of our people on social media can. We are fired up tonight. Yep, we got our green glasses on. We got our green ball that we're playing with right here on the table, and we're firing up our right brain, and we're getting ready to have a fantastic Friday night show. I hate it that you can't see it if you're listening to it on the radio, but it's some good stuff. You might have to go to the Walk by Faith Facebook page. I know Ken Adams is sharing a lot of this stuff on that page, and he's also been hitting us up on the X on Twitter for and following it with the Walk by Faith Twitter page as well. So you guys can catch us over there. So yeah, we've had a good week at the Rock. We started off on Monday taking health to church and talking about worry and anxiety, and then just unwrapped it all week long with equipment that we use in the office. Two shows on that. One of them is the daily equipment that we use in the gym, and the other one is what we use with new patients and then in the adjustment rooms. And then we used Wednesday night to talk about the Master and His Emissary and how we really wanted to get into that. What does the right brain do? What does the left brain do? And then last night did some more equipment. So last night I forgot I was going to show you this for you guys that are watching. I was going to show you this green ball. And so if you wanted to, if you wanted a ball for your kids to play with, if you wanted a ball for yourself, just something for you to do, and that you could have around. The green is good for your brain. Your brain has a tendency to like it. That's why you like trees and grass and leaves and all that sort of thing. But that's something that you can do. And then you could just doing exercises with that ball in your left hand is really good for your right brain, right? So now we're exercising that brain as well. So I've got the ball. You guys on the radio, we got the ball. It's a green ball. It's not very big. I don't know. Maybe that's about 6-8 inches, 8 inches probably. Just a little handheld ball. You can palm it in your hand, and you can squeezing with the fingers, and that has a lot to do with the way that your brain fires too. So remember that little homunculus man that we had on the show not too long ago. You can look that up, homunculus. Be careful, it's a little risque on its pictures, but it can show you how many neurons are related to your hand. So a green ball, bouncing a green ball with your left hand, harder to do on the table. You guys can't see it on the radio, but I'm bouncing it. I got a pair of green glasses on, and that's the way the ball works. That's the way the glasses work. Fires up your brain a little bit, get you moving in the right direction, and it can get you going. I had some good comments last night. I had one of them that was actually on Facebook, and Lewis put that on there last night, talking about he showed this stuff to his son, and his son was kind of impressed about how the brain works and what's going on with the brain. So I think it's awesome stuff. I think it's awesome stuff to know about health. I think it's awesome stuff to know when you're trying to raise children. I think it's awesome stuff to understand in relationships with your significant other, your spouse, your husband, your wife, your girlfriend. When you're in a relationship, I think those things when you're trying to raise teenagers. I had some good conversations. I had a good conversation today about teenagers and how teenagers work and what their thoughts are and how they function a little bit different sometimes, right? And they haven't gotten that upper brain working quite yet. So they don't make necessarily the smartest decisions all the time. They think they know everything and they know very little. And I'm kind of wondering myself that at 53 years old, I'm kind of wondering when I get to be 83, will I look back at 53 and think to myself, man, I wasn't very smart back then. Because at 53, I look back at 23, and I used to think I was really smart when I was 23. And then now when I look back at it, I think, man, maybe I wasn't quite as smart as I thought I was. I think I have a really strong feeling that that's factual. But we were getting after it when I was 23, and I'm sitting here in my office, and I was looking. I had the glasses and the ball, and I was thinking about the other stuff, and I looked over there on my desk behind me, and I've got a piece of the goalpost when we were coaching in 1999. I think that's 99. Yeah, I think that's 99, where we beat Texas A&M here at Tech 21-19, and they tore the goalpost down. I think they tore it down, carried it up the stadium, and threw it in the fountain at the front of the university. They were a little excited. Might have had a little bit of alcohol involved in that deal. Might have had too many tortillas. That they were. If you guys have ever been to a Texas Tech football game, they throw tortillas. So, but. There was that was kind of cool to have that. I was just thinking about the old days right there, and when we beat A&M that day, that was a big deal. We beat them a bunch of times, but that day I think they were ranked or something, and they came to Jones Stadium and they lost. So anyway, I've got some thoughts tonight, and I've got some thoughts about some supplements and some ideas and some toxicities, because I had a few conversations this week about some different things. And, we're in the middle of winter. It's cold, and it seems like there's a lot of sickness going around right now. It seems like there's a lot of patients that call in and they're canceling their appointments because they're sick. And it's like, what's contributing to that? What's happening in the middle of the winter? Why are we not being able to make our way through the winter without being sick? And what can we do to maybe we can? There's some thoughts on that I have, but there's a couple of things that I think we can get to here as the show goes on. But I found this in my neurology book from my functional neurology series that I took with Dr. Michael Hall. And I want to give a shout out to Dr. Michael Hall, because I didn't get to have Dr. Hall when I was a student at Parker College, going through chiropractic school. But he has spent, the better part of the last at least 25 years trying to change the world through functional neurology. He's tirelessly worked to try to share as much information as he possibly can to us. And I was very fortunate when MJ and Katie from Roswell came to my office and kind of got me reconnected with Dr. Hall, and gave me that opportunity to kind of sit with him a few different times. Got to go up to Denver and spend an entire day with him, and then we got to go up and start the functional neurology series with him, and got to spend some time with him there. And so I want to give him a shout out, because he is a very smart man with a lot of competitive drive, and that's a lot of fun when you're trying to learn something. So, but I was going through the book, and there's a couple of things that I wrote down that I thought you might think were cool. And there are a couple of slides here, and because we were talking about this week, we were talking about the right brain and the left brain, and how the right brain sees the whole picture of things, and the left brain sees the parts of things. And I mentioned how the left brain will sometimes lie to us because it has to go on. And I was reading through these slides, and I thought, this might even explain it just a little bit more clearly. But this is from the Neurotics Guide to Avoiding Enlightenment, and there's a Michael Gazzaniga. Yes, Gazzaniga. Gazzaniga discovered that the left side of the brain creates explanations and reasons to help make sense about what's going on. It acted as an interpreter to reality. Over the last 30 years, several studies have shown that the left side of the brain, even in normal people, excels at creating an explanation for what's going on, even if it isn't correct. And that's a good way of putting it right there. You got to make sense of your life. You got to make sense of what's happening. And then there was a nice little conversation down here. So it says grandmother didn't like the word liar. She felt it was too harsh. She used to say people were telling stories. And that's what the left side of your brain does constantly. The right side of your brain sees things pretty concretely, but that guy to his left is always weaving tales and trying to make sense of the information coming in. That's his job. We need lefty to give meaning to life. He interprets your experiences If lefty sees a real pattern that others don't, people call you creative. But there's also a problem. Lefty often screws up. Gazzaniga, one of the top cognitive neuroscientists, did some brain studies in the 70s with Roger Sperry, who was later a Nobel Prize winner, and they discovered that lefty's job is and just how badly lefty is at it sometime. So it's kind of like this little conversation. The right brain says, everyone at the table is frowning. They're not laughing at our brilliant jokes. The left brain said, obviously, they hate us and are plotting our death. Lefty can be way off base sometimes. If he sees patterns there where there aren't any, you're anxious, paranoid, or schizophrenic. If the lefty doesn't see any pattern in life equals no meaning, you're clinically depressed. If he doesn't see any pattern in life, right? Because the patterns come from the right side. Ever screw up bad and apologize by saying, I wasn't myself last night? Think about it. That apology makes no sense whatsoever. What you're trying to say is, my actions did not line up with the story Lefty gave me about who I am. Again, the map is not the territory. The problem is you don't even realize Lefty is there. You assume his voice in your head is you and that his stories are rock solid reality. But when Lefty isn't detecting useful patterns, making accurate sense of things, and giving meaning to the world, he can be a monster. He's that jerk who has an opinion about everything, refuses to shut up, and never admits when he's wrong. If this doesn't work out, my life is over. Everything is awful. I don't deserve this. This is Lefty gone haywire. When you pay too little attention to the right brain's raw data, she's looking at her phone, and give too much credence to Lefty's sometimes bonehead interpretation, clearly we're boring her. You can end up angry, sad, frustrated, or anxious. And I thought that was kind of a good little conversation right there that kind of explained the way that we sometimes, the left brain's not getting the information from the right brain, that it won't accept it. It won't, because there's just not proper energy flow going between the two hemispheres. So think about that last part right there. When you pay too little attention to the right brain's raw data, she's looking at her phone. So what is the right brain doing? The right brain is giving us the information of our environment, right? We're bringing in the information in our environment through the right hemisphere. We're sitting in a room. I'm sitting there with Leslie. Leslie's sitting across the table from me. We went to lunch today. This was happening. I was sitting there staring at her, and she was eating her food, and her eyes were down, and she wasn't looking at me at all. And I was sitting there looking at her. Well, I was processing the room. I was processing the other people coming in and out. I was processing what was going on, the cars driving by, all those sort of things. And I was looking at her. She was just sitting there. She was just sitting there eating her lunch. And I was looking at her and interpreting that in the right hemisphere. And my right hemisphere should be telling my left hemisphere she's just sitting there eating her lunch. But my left hemisphere might sometimes say, clearly I'm boring her to death. Clearly she's up to something. Clearly it's so obvious that she's not enjoying this lunch at all. I don't even know why we came to lunch. It's just like, dadgum, right? I mean, how many times do we really do that, right? We just jump to conclusions. We take a piece of data that we think is positive or we think is true, and we just kind of jump into that pathway right there, and then we just lose it. Because that's what the left brain will do. When the left brain isn't detecting useful patterns, making accurate sense of things, and giving meaning to the world, he can be a monster. So there comes your anger, right? The jerk, the attitude, the anger of that left brain that's not getting that information properly. And I think that what we're doing is what we're trying to do is kind of map out health and wellness. We're trying to map out health and wellness and say, look, there's a time where I can just sit there and sit across the table and just look at Leslie, because I think she's beautiful. I thought she's beautiful since she was about 15 years old, and maybe even 14 years old. And I can sit there and just look at her, and I still think she's beautiful. And she's 52 years old, or whatever she is now. I guess she's 52 years old. And she's sitting across the table from me, and I can just look at her without creating some sort of story up in my head about something. I could just understand. If I had the maturity to just sit there and listen and watch and understand the room, it wouldn't be threatening. I had a great example on Thursday when I got to speak to that ladies club. And when I was trying to explain to them, when I first walked into the room, the lady that set me up to speak, I had never met her face to face before. She'd only called the office, and she'd heard about me, and she sent me text, and we communicated through text. And I was running late. And so when I first walked into the room, I was like, am I in the right room? And who's the person that I'm supposed to talk to? I don't know any of this stuff. So I was just a touch anxious, not very much. I was probably a little bit more curious, but it was happening in that right side. But it didn't take but just a second before that right side transitioned the room to my left side and said, my right brain said, look, there's no threat in here. Everybody's fine. Nobody's mad. You're totally fine. You can just deliver this speech just great. You don't even have to worry about anything. And one of the first things I actually did is I took off my glasses. I took off my glasses because they had a big TV. I had a little flash drive with my PowerPoint on it, and I as soon as I plugged that in, and there was a big TV right there, so I didn't have to fine print things, be able to see them. I took off my glasses because my glasses mess up the way that I get information into my brain. Right? I got to get my glasses fixed because they're literally driving me crazy. But I was taking control of my environment. I was taking control of my environment, and I was calming myself down by understanding what was happening in the room. I was prepared. I had a slide presentation. They had a computer. They had a TV. It was all up and running. All we had to do is just push play, and we did, and it was ready. I looked around the room. There weren't any intimidating people in there. There was mostly little old ladies that were sitting in there, and I was confident. I was calm. I was peaceful. It was totally fine the way that I was handling the situation. Right in the middle of my talk, one of the other ladies from downstairs came up and she started talking to one of the ladies in the room. And they were kind of disrupting the conversation there for a second. Because I was so calm, and because I was comfortable, and because I was confident in that moment, I didn't detect that as a threat whatsoever. I just somebody was parked in the parking lot in the next building. Somebody was illegally parked, and the people over in the next building were going to come over, and they just were trying to tell us that, hey, they were about to tow that vehicle. And that lady felt like maybe there was somebody in that room who had parked wrong, and she didn't want them to get their car towed. And so she was trying to explain, the lady from downstairs was trying to explain to the lady that was in the room listening to the talk what was going on over there. Now, had I been more in my left brain, had I been more, I would have tried to figure out what was happening over there without understanding the big picture of things. If I would have been a little bit more anxious, if I would have been a little bit more upset because I wasn't getting that information from my right side to my left side, my right side had already told my left side, dude, you're golden right here. There's no threat. There's no problems. There's nothing to worry about. You're golden. Just handle it. I almost felt like I was playing football again. I remember that feeling, and I have searched for that feeling since I quit playing football. But I remember being in high school even and having that feeling of being on a football field and having complete control of what was happening out there. Nothing was going to happen that I didn't know about. I knew every rule. I knew everything. I knew every scenario. There was nothing. I knew what was going to happen if we ran the play right. I knew what was going to happen if we ran the play wrong. Man, my heart rate was just chill. I was super intense, but I was just chill. It was like, we got this, right? And that's kind of how I felt in the middle of that talk yesterday, Thursday. Yeah, yesterday. Was that same exact way. It was like, we got this. And I say that because how does that affect our health? How would it affect your health? If you're watching this show right now, how would it affect you personally? If you were walking around throughout your day, all day long, just chill. Like I got this. That you were breaking down the details of things, knowing that there was no threat at all in your environment. You're fine. Everything's fine. What do you think that might do to your heart rate? What do you think that might do to your blood pressure? What do you think that might do to the relationships that you have with other people? What do you think that might do to the success that you might have in your day if that was what you were able to achieve? See, that is really like, I know we talk about the brain all the time, and sometimes it's not the typical show, right? It's not the typical health and wellness show. We break down some of this stuff. We talk about fish oil. I know that there's supplements that you should take, and we talk about carbohydrates, and we talk about fats. We've done all that stuff. We've talked about exercise, but we always talk about the brain. And we always talk about how the brain functions. It's called functional neurology. It's not the breakdown of pathways. If you're a super geek and you're a super smart dude or whatever, and you wanted to have a conversation with me about all of the neural pathways in the brain and all of the different parts of the brain and every breakdown of them, I would not be the guy to talk to. You would lose me as much as I lose you sometimes. Those guys would lose me. If I called my friend Condi from South Florida and I wanted to have a conversation with him about the brain, he would have to dumb it down a little bit for me. He was like, it'd be like, hold up now, wait a minute. These are green glasses, right? Let's don't get a whole lot more complicated. Then, okay, right side, green glasses. Good. That's what I'm talking about, right? Because what I'm trying to do is talk to you. I'm trying to talk to you on the radio. I'm trying to talk to you, the people that are watching the show. My passion and interest is your health being better. Knowing this information so that your health is better, right? And just think about how much healthier you might be if you could get the right side of your brain to tell the left side of your brain, there is no threat in my environment, and here's the big picture of what's going on. That's what the responsibility of the right hemisphere is. Can I get my right side to tell my left side that those are the things I need? There's no threat in this environment right now, and I'm in good shape. Here's where we are. Right now, I'm in the studio. I'm at the office. I'm in the studio. All this is working. The computers are working. We're on time. We've got content. We're going to be fine. Everything is good, right? No sense in being frustrated. Now, left brain, go to work. Go to work and break it all down. Understand the details. Get the story right. Get the information right so that you can share it to the people, right? Man, how many times have I messed up as a dad because I was thinking about something else, or I was stressed out about something else, or I wasn't getting along with Leslie about something, and then the kids say something, or I was worried about we were going to pay the rent, or how we were going to make the payroll, or what was going to happen, or like couldn't all those things that my right hemisphere wasn't able to communicate with my left hemisphere, and then my left hemisphere all of a sudden got fussy and short-tempered and angry about things, and who lived in that environment, right? Leslie and the kids, they had to be in that environment. They're like, uh-oh, Dad's fussy. What happens when it's at work? What happens when the people that work for you, or the people that work around you, have that same kind of problem right there? Like, you're fussy. You're hard to get along with. You're cranky about stuff. What if you're a wife and you're cranky about stuff all the time? How does that make your husband feel? Right? Like, not good. How does it make your kids feel? Not good. That's not a good thing, right? So what can we do? What can we do, right? I think we can understand it. That's the number one thing I think that we can do, is we can understand it. And we can really, really understand. Oh, I really understand it. He keeps saying it, but I'm getting it. I'm really getting it right there. I think I'm catching on to what he's saying. Hey, let's take a break. We'll be right back right after these messages. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. Yeah, because it's life. You get the whole story, and like, I'm human just like you're human, right? And we're just trying to work through this whole thing together. And once we get going, we start to understand, and we get somebody to explain it to us, that, like, why does this liquid gold right here, this life in a bottle, why do I care so much about this right here? What is it? Why am I the number one? And I would argue that I am the number one fish oil fan in the world. If I'm not, I'm at least tied for the number one fish oil fan in the world. Why is that? Why is it that nobody that you know, I promise you that, nobody that you know talks about fish oil and loves fish oil as much as I do? Got it in the pills, and we got it in the liquid right there, right? I would challenge you. If I'm wrong, send me a message. If you've got somebody in life, if you've got somebody in your life, you can send me a message or send me a text on the text line. If there's somebody that loves fish oil more than I do, then please point them out. I'd love to meet them. I'd probably take them to lunch. And I don't think so, right? I don't think you're going to find them out there. Why? Because this is antifreeze for your brain. This DHA is just like pouring a little bit of heaven inside your brain. It helps your brain work better, and it decreases the inflammation in your body, and it protects your cells, and it protects your mitochondria, which is the I wanted to go back and touch on just a little bit, the glutathione. That if we get to it, we'll probably get to it in this second half of the show, and get to the glutathione stuff. But yeah, that's what that stuff does for us, and those are things that that's where walking, that's where exercise, that's where nutrition, that's where cervical curves, that's where sleep, that's where all of those things that you do for health matter, because they affect the way that your brain works. That's a huge aspect whenever you think about it. If you can tie that together, and if you can really get to where you can understand, man, I got to keep my brain working. 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 If I can do that, man, you have an advantage as a human being. I think that's a true statement. Okay, we're back. This is Friday night. This is Life with Jason Clemmons, DC. Glad you guys are listening to the show. Hope you've had a great week. Hope that first half of the show kind of meant something to you. And I hope that you can kind of get the idea. I was talking to the listeners on social media while you guys were away, and just really talking about what we're trying to accomplish, and how much better we would be as human beings if we could get our brains to work as optimally as possible. That's really something I'm strongly about. I think when your brain works better, your knees are going to work better. When your brain works better, your shoulders are going to work better. When your brain works better, you're going to have more energy throughout your day, right? So a couple of just random sentences that I had written down inside my book. So these are just kind of some notes that I had written down as I was going through some of this stuff. This is not a in the slides, but I just, as we were going through the slides, sometimes I would just write down some things there and so I thought I would share a few of them with you as we go through tonight. But one of them here is I just wrote down left SCM works the right trap, left frontal inhibits left SCM, left frontal inhibits left SCM. It goes with arc up to the left and rehabs the right SCM. I know that doesn't make any sense, but let me break it down. The left frontal inhibits the left FCM. This is my frontal lobe on the left. It turns off my left. This SCM is called the sternocleidomastoid muscle. And we're coming through here, and it's coming off of our mastoid. It hits our sternum, it hits our clavicle. You turn your head and you see that muscle on the side of your neck. And what turns down the resting tone of that muscle? If you get a chance this weekend, just get behind somebody that you know. Don't walk up to a stranger or anything, but just get behind somebody that you know and put your hands on their shoulders, and just squeeze their traps. Just kind of squeeze their shoulders, and feel whether or not that feels soft and like you're squeezing the Charmin. If you're old enough to know what that means, the softness in the shoulders, or do their shoulders feel like a solid rock? Like, is it just like tight as heck? Is it super tight? That's what muscle tone is. Muscle tone is that it ought not to be super tight. There shouldn't be a place when you put your hands on someone, you put them on the shoulders, it shouldn't be super tight. That's muscle tone. You can kind of feel it. You can just feel it in your forearms. If you were to just reach and touch your forearms, you can feel it in your forearms. That's muscle tone. That shouldn't be hard as a rock right there. You should have some sponginess to the muscle tone. And this doesn't mean you're fat and flabby and all that sort of thing. And all you workout people, calm down just a bit, right? It's like that's just resting muscle tone. And I should have some calm resting muscle tone. Well, the frontal lobe is what turns that SCM off right there. And that SCM, if it's tight, it's going to pull my head down like this. It's going to bring my head into a tilt if this SCM is tight. And if it's tight, what I should think is, man, I got to fire up that frontal lobe. And I've got a little bit of natural tilt that way myself. So how do I rehab that? I fire the other SCM, and I fire it through the cerebellum. And that's one of the things we do. You can put your thumb out here, and you can turn your head. You can look at your thumb, and you can turn your head, and you can see this SCM on this side fire. You can see that muscle right there. So you can't see it on the radio. I know that. You gotta understand that I know that. Yes. Put your thumb right out in front of you. Stick your arm straight out in front of you and put your thumb up like you're saying, yeah, hey, like Fonzie. Put your thumb up, look right at your thumb, and take your thumb up at a 45-degree angle. Just take it up and go 45 degrees like that. And what you'll do is you'll feel it, and watch how you do it too, because and if you guys are on the radio, watch how you do it, because this movement right here is wrong. Some of you will do that. Some of you will take your thumb, you'll go up at 45, and you will lay your head back into it. Well, when you lay your head back into it, you're not firing that SCM muscle right there. So what you want to do is you want to turn it down like that. Now, I want to activate this one on the right side. I want to take my arm. I'm going to put my left arm out in front of me. I'm going to take my arm at a 45-degree angle backward. I'm going to rotate my head with it, and I'm going to fire this left SCM. And that muscle has neurological firing patterns into, it's my right side SCM muscle, which has neurological firing patterns into my right cerebellum, which fires up into my left cortex. That's where it crosses right there. And firing up my left cortex is going to make that left side SCM calm down. It's going to decrease the amount of tone in my flexor muscles by keeping that up. So that's just a little piece of information that I wrote right there in the book. And then there was a couple more over here that adrenal fatigue, the person goes to sleep, then wakes up 4 hours later. If you're the person that's going to sleep and you can't stay asleep, you just go to sleep and then you wake up 4 hours later, you should consider that you've got some adrenal fatigue going on. And there's different reasons for that, but the adrenal glands are what fire when your sympathetic response fires from the right hemisphere, from that amygdala on that right side that fires down through the IML that we talked about before to the adrenal gland. And now that adrenal gland being overworked or under supplied with nutrients can cause adrenal fatigue. So that's just a note that I made right there. Insomnia is the person that can't go to sleep. When you say I have trouble sleeping and you come into my office, I'm going to ask you one of two questions. Can you go to sleep and not stay asleep, or can you just not go to sleep? And people will answer it both ways. And that's two different things to us in the office. So that was something right there. I wrote in here, speed skating, ice skating can add skateboard to help glute medius. So that's one of the things I did when I was sitting. Leslie loves it when I go to these seminars and stuff, and when I'm doing this continuing education, because I'll just be sitting in the middle of the class and I'll read something, I'll write something down, and we'll be talking about something, and then I'll just get my phone and I'll immediately go to Amazon and I'll order something to have it sent to the office so I can get it, as soon as I can before I get back. And one of the things I put in was a slide board. And the slide board helps if you put your hand on the lateral side of your glutes, not in the back, but on the lateral side of your glutes. That's your glute medius muscle right there. And stepping sideways helps activate that glute medius. That's why one of the things we do on the vibe plates in the gym is have people step sideways. We leave the vibe plate on just to keep that vibration going, but we turn and get lateral. We just step sideways off of the vibe plate and step back on, because we're trying to work that glute medius. And that's there's a neurological pattern of that glute medius firing into the opposite side brain as well, and the opposite side brain having to fire the glute medius. So you can get brain activity by stepping sideways. We step a lot forward. We spend a lot of our time walking forward. We spend very little time moving sideways. So that we kind of lose that muscle sometimes when we're not stepping sideways. Your posture is a reflection of brain function. Your posture is a reflection of brain function. And that's a really good thing to understand. If you slouch, if your kids slouch, if you sit there and you got the forward head posture and the rolled shoulders and you're sitting there like that, and every time you sit there like that, because haven't you ever heard, everybody's had somebody that, like their mama says, hey, sit up straight. Yeah, I have patients tell me that all the time. That they come in and their moms, they said, my mom's told me my whole life to sit up straight. I need to just sit up straight. And sitting up straight has to do, think of it as your posture is a reflection of your brain function. If you're not sitting up straight, your brain's not firing. If your child is not sitting up straight, their brain's not firing. I hope that means something to parents. I hope that if you're a parent and you're listening to the show, I hope that means something to you, because that's a big deal. Action of a muscle happens at its insertion. There's one for you. Action of a muscle happens at its insertion, and that's a lot. It's really big on the bicep. It happens at every muscle, but it also is something that we might could consider is if you have the bicep muscle, and you have an injury to the bicep muscle, most likely that injury is going to be to the downstream, what we call the distal portion of that muscle. So if you're injured and you've injured your bicep, it's and the injury is due to action, like you overstrained your bicep or you did something like that, you're most likely going to get it at the insertion, not the origin of the muscle. If you've got anterior shoulder pain right here, anterior shoulder pain, proximal, meaning closest to your shoulder. Like if you just put your hand in the front of your shoulder and it hurts right there, that's the proximal tendon, and proximal tendon is with the brain. You want to think about that. You want to think proximal tendon, brain. Distal part of the muscle is muscle injury or function. So think about that. The action of the muscle is usually is work. The work gets done at the end of the muscle, and if you're having that bicep tendon problem right there, think about brain first. Just something that I thought would be cool. There was another one right here about walking, and here's people often that we talk about it. I talked about it today in one of our nutritional evaluations when we were talking about exercise, and I was asking a young girl how often she exercised, and she said every day, six days a week, and I said, and what kind of intensity are you doing on those whole 6 days a week, right? And I know there's 8 billion people on the planet, and someone's going to have an opinion about this, and someone's going to say that, oh, you're just soft or old or whatever, right? But I don't really think you need to do high intensity workout more than about 2 or 3 times a week just for wellness sake. If you're trying to compete against something, if you're trying to beat A&M, maybe you need more of that. Okay, I'm not going to argue that. If you're a battler, if you're a gladiator in the arena, and you're going to go to battle, and maybe you have to work out a little bit different. But from wellness standpoint, I like to think of it when I take this fish oil. One thing I do is I look on it to see how many milligrams it's got of it. Right? I'm going to look here at the EPA on the back of this, and this EPA is 1,950 milligrams. This DHA is 975 milligrams. Look at yours. If you've got some cheap fish oil, go look at it and see how many milligrams you have, right? Because you add this together, it's 2925, I think, is what this is, total milligrams of fish oil. That's our baseline. Well, what is the baseline of fitness? What's the milligrams? How many milligrams of fitness do we need in a week in order to be healthy, right? That's not necessarily something that we talk about all the time. We don't necessarily break that down like that. We don't think, oh man, I need more milligrams of fish oil, or of exercise. I've got too many milligrams of exercise. That's not something that we think about. So one way you can test it, one way you can test your fitness is called the 2-minute step test. And you're going to march in place for 2 minutes. You're going to march in place with a 60-step cadence. So every second, you can get you one of those little deals on your phone that gives you a 60-second cadence. And you're going to march, you're going to stand in place, and it's just a full high knee march. And you're going to do it for 2 minutes. And you're going to check your heart rate before you start. And then at the end of the 2 minutes, you're going to check your heart rate again. And then when you stop, you're going to wait for 1 minute and see how far down your heart dropped. And you really want your heart rate to drop 50 beats or more in that first minute after you stop. That is one simple way that you can, at home, just check your fitness level. If you can step in place for 2 minutes at a 60 step per minute cadence, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're stepping with high knees, just stepping with high knees, moving your arms, and you're doing that for 2 minutes. And then when you stop, as soon as you stop, take your heart rate, and then wait 1 minute and take your heart rate again, and see if your heart rate dropped 50 beats. If it did, you got pretty good cardiovascular fitness. Aerobic fitness is a vagal response. That's the next thing I wrote right there. So you should drop in 50 beats per minute. If you've got good aerobic fitness, you've got good vagus nerve tone, we call it vagal tone, which goes to all the organs in your body, right? And I think I mentioned that the other day about hearing an article about how exercise actually fires the parasympathetic nervous system. It actually increases parasympathetic health. It's not just stress. Exercise is not just stress, which is sympathetic. It's also working on that parasympathetic through the vagus nerve to all the organs in your body. And I thought that was a cool. The last one right here is when you take antidepressants, you feel better because you care less. It's not because you care more. It's because you care less. If you're taking antidepressants, that's a big deal. So those are just some of the things from the neurology book that I was looking over for today. And then there was a couple of more things I just wanted to touch on before we go away for the weekend. And the first one is just to remember that from a nutritional standpoint, one of the most important things that you have in your body, one of the most important antioxidants that you have in your body is glutathione. And we talked about it early in the show. It's just been a couple weeks since we talked about it. And glutathione is it's an antioxidant, and it's made from three specific amino acids. And it's glutamate, L-glycine, and glycine. And you get amino acids from eating proteins. So that's how you get that in there. One of the things is called N-acetylcysteine. And N-acetylcysteine is a potent glutathione precursor. And I take N-acetylcysteine every single day. You see it in the stores as NAC, but that's N-acetylcysteine right there. And that's a precursor to glutathione. And glutathione is super important in the way that your body it works. It helps immune system function. It helps detoxify your body. It helps with being an antioxidant. It is the major antioxidant. And in the book Younger Next Year, it was really one of the first times that I heard somebody say this. I didn't really have anybody break it down for me like this before. But what is an antioxidant? Think about that for a second. What does that mean? Antioxidant. Oxygen can actually be toxic. That's what the author said in the book, and I was like, "Whoa, hang on a second. Who said that?" I just missed it somewhere along the way that oxygen can actually be toxic. And one of the things that helps us handle oxygen is mitochondria. That's how we actually solve the oxygen problem inside our cells. Inside our cells is to have good levels of mitochondria. And so what protects mitochondria? What's the number one protector of mitochondria? Glutathione. So there's a way that it works together right there. It's the master antioxidant because it replenishes the actions of many other antioxidants. Vitamin E, vitamin C inside the cell are fighting like a bunch of little kids and creating free radicals, which will destroy that mitochondria. So glutathione, just don't forget about glutathione. Just one of the things, that's one of the reasons that I don't take Tylenol and acetaminophen products is because acetaminophen depletes glutathione. It's not debatable. It's true facts. And so if you really understand that glutathione is super important, and you have to get this, that's what this is all about right here. We've talked about this before. This is why the fish oil keeps the omega-6-3 ratio proper, which keeps the cell wall proper, which allows for the transmission of those 3 amino acids across the cell membrane, which allows us to build glutathione inside the cell, which allows us to protect our mitochondria and keep the power on to our cells. Got that? Got that? How that mapped out right there? That's why it's super important. One of the natural proteins, natural protein with the highest biological value is whey protein. So you ask, how can I increase my glutathione? One is N-acetylcysteine. Two is whey protein, but it needs to be undenatured. So whey proteins are found in the milk of mammals, including humans. So you got to watch out with that, right? But processing of milk involves heat and mechanical agitation, which denature the whey proteins, reducing their bioactivity usefulness in building intracellular glutathione. Denatured whey protein loses its capacity to deliver glutathione precursors. This is all coming from Jimmy Gutman, MD. We've talked about him before. Glutathione, Key to Your Health. Jimmy Gutman, MD, 2008. So the processing of milk involves that, and it denatures. Denatured whey protein loses its capacity to deliver glutathione precursors. Undenatured whey protein is a safe, dependable, effective way to raise and sustain glutathione levels. Glutathione deficiency may be a biochemical cause of the aging process. That's why Leslie and I had a good conversation the other night, because she's all into collagen, because she wants to help her wrinkles, because she doesn't want to get wrinkled. And okay, fine. This is not a pro-collagen or anti-collagen statement. It's a simple statement about sometimes we get off in the wrong county when it comes to some of the things that we could do for our health. The first thing we should do for our health is protect our mitochondria. That's what we should do. After we know we've already worked on our brain, right? We really have to keep our power turned on. So we need that mitochondria. We need to build mitochondria. That's where low intensity aerobic activity is for. That's what walking does for us. Try to hit that 15-minute mile walking pace, and you'll be right in that sweet spot of building that. Do that for 40, 45 minutes every day and watch. Remember the guy we talked about earlier this week, the 92-year-old man who started working out when he was 73? He does, he exercises, what did it say, every day, 5 days, 6 days a week on his rowing machine for 40 minutes. And he does mostly really slow and easy work. What's he doing? He's building blood vessels and he's building mitochondria. He's increasing the mitochondria because he needs to handle the oxygen. When we breathe, we need to handle the oxygen. The more that we breathe, the better that we can function, and how that whole thing comes together. Wim Hof talks about that. That's his whole deal. If you guys are into cold therapy, it came from this dude right here. This is Wim Hof. That's where the cold plunge came from. Everybody got a cold plunge now, right? They don't know why it works. They think they do. They think it's helping them in their muscle rehab and all that stuff. We know it doesn't. That's not what it's all about. It drives adrenaline to the right hemisphere, dopamine to the left hemisphere, and helps us with mitochondria when we breathe. He's a huge breather. You can go to Wim Hof and you can get information about breathing. And that's that breathing is going to help us with the way that we increase our mitochondria and keep our power on right there. So that was the big part of what I wanted to do. Hey, we've hit the end of the show. I'm not going to get into the aluminum, but I am going to save that for another date. We'll get into aluminum. It's going to be a little controversial when I do, so we don't have enough time to break it down right now. But I hope you guys had a great week. I hope you guys enjoyed the show. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for the likes. Thanks for the shares that you do. I really do appreciate that. It gets the word out to more people, and we're going to try to get it to as many people as possible so that they can live as healthy as life as possible, and we might just be able to change the world, all of us together. So hope you guys have a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday night when we take health to church. So you guys be safe, and let me know if we can help you.